Welcome to those of you in the Zoom room and to those of you watching the recording. Thank you for joining our second session in this seminar series, Fantastic Fits, Pairing EdTech with Impactful Learning Activities. My name is Emily Franklin. I'm an instructional designer with the TLC. And each of these three sessions in this seminar series will help you to find a fitting EdTech tool for a particular teaching task or learning task. And today's topic is designing structured peer review with EdTech. And I'm going to, or rather Erin is going to, paste in the chat a link to the slides. So you can follow along here with me. I'm screen sharing these slides. They're also in the chat for you now. All right, so before we jump into designing peer review with EdTech, I'd like to ground us in a simple idea from the task technology fit model and technology acceptance models. So instead of starting with tools, we start with your teaching tasks, what you already ask students to do, like a reading assignment or a case study or students peer reviewing each other's work. And then we look for a tool that meaningfully supports that task. But even if the tool is a good match for your task, you're only likely to use it if you think the tool is easy to use and useful for your teaching. And that, of course, influences your attitude of the tool and your intentions to use it. So in today's session, we're going to stay focused on this idea of starting with a teaching task and identifying a tool that really supports it. And you can read more about the technology theories, technology acceptance model, and task technology fit model in an article that Erin has put into the chat and is available on the slides. All right, so what we'll cover today is why peer review matters, common challenges and solutions that you might have found with peer review. Then I will demo the EdTech tool Feedback Fruits, which is a tool we can use for peer review. And I'll demo it from the student side so you can see how students might experience this activity in your course. And then we'll look at how to structure peer review and end with resources and Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout this session, feel free to put them in the chat as we go so you don't forget anything, and we'll address them all at the end. So let's think about your courses. What type of student work in your courses could benefit from peer review, or how might you be using peer review already? Feel free to come off mute or use the chat if you have any great ideas you'd like to share with us.
I don't know if it's a great idea or not, but
Sure.
look at my camera or screen with the camera. I'll do that in a minute. But one thing we do at the end of the public health program planning project, which is a 3-semester long project where they start on assessment planning, implementation, evaluations, that we have them rate their teammates at the end. It doesn't go into a grade or anything like that. It's just to get them thinking about providing closure and wrap up and providing useful feedback.
Yeah, that's a good example. Providing feedback to a teammate. I also see in the chat team-based learning, patient case presentations. That's a good idea too, or practice case encounters in the PA history and physical course. Yeah, those are all certainly good examples. Does anyone else have anything else you'd like to share?
I have them peer review documentation. Like after a simulation lab, they have to document and then they peer review each other's documentation using kind of a tool from our professional organization related to documentation.
Okay, perfect. So there is a tool guiding them in their review or their feedback. That's good. Yeah, it's nice to hear how different folks are using peer review. I think it can be really beneficial to get other people's perspectives, not just the instructor all the time. Yeah, so there's lots of reasons why we do these activities, right? Lots of benefits of getting peer review. And along with those, we might have seen some challenges. So let's think about the challenges that you might encounter with peer review and some design implications of that. So you might have seen some of these like low quality or vague feedback, maybe students focusing on irrelevant details or not knowing how to what good feedback looks like, or maybe they're misunderstanding expectations. Another challenge might be uneven participation due to bias or fear of giving honest feedback, or not valuing their peer critique, so they're a little less participatory in the activity. And another challenge may be that it's hard to manage tracking who reviewed whom, especially in a large course. So let's think about, someone else says resistance due to lack of exposure. Yes. And so peer review is an activity that's hard to do just once. We do need a lot of structure here. And so that's some of the design implications to these challenges. And this is where a tool like Feedback Fruits can come in handy, because it helps to address these challenges. So Feedback Fruits is a tool integrated in Canvas. So you can create a Feedback Fruits assignment in Canvas, and students upload their work and are automatically assigned a peer submission to review, and they'll provide feedback to their peer using a rubric that you have created, or criteria that you're telling them is important to respond to. So that rubric helps to focus reviews, specific prompts or criteria, to focus students on the criteria that you've selected, which hopefully helps combat this challenge of low quality feedback. They're focusing on the things that you've said are important in the assignment. And for the challenge of uneven participation, Feedback Fruits has a clear structure for students of step 1, 2, 3, what to do in order. It's a very structured assignment for what students are supposed to do when. So there's clear expectations there. And then it also allows students to rate how useful each other's feedback was. So that rating system builds in accountability and hopefully encourages thoughtful responses if they know they're getting rated on the quality of that feedback. And then for the challenge of hard to manage, Feedback Fruits automatically assigns reviewers and tracks submission and completion, so you're not sorting through who did what or where submissions are or anything like that. So again, this tool, Feedback Fruits, is something that you have access to already in Canvas. So this screenshot that I'm sharing right now shows setting up a Canvas assignment, specifically setting the submission type. So you can choose external tool as your submission type, and then you'll have a list of external tools and you'll select Feedback Fruits. And so then students interact with it within Canvas. So there's no separate login or leaving Canvas. So that's helpful. And if you're not familiar with setting up an assignment like this or the tool, that's no problem. I'll share some resources at the end of this session that guide you through guide you through setting up the assignment in Canvas. And also you can reach out to us if you would like individualized support with that. So let's see what Feedback Fruits looks like in action. I'm going to give you a demo from the student perspective again, so you can see like how the students would experience it and how that might work in your course. So I'm going to share with you my Canvas course, or I'm in a Canvas course and I'm a student in this course. So this is the student perspective, and you can see here I'm in assignments, just like any other Canvas assignment. And the Feedback Fruits is embedded, that tool is embedded here in the Canvas assignment page. So again, the students can just work on it right there within the Canvas course rather than going out somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and click full screen here so we can see it a little bit easier. And I'll walk you through step by step, just as the students would be completing this activity. So we have clearly labeled steps in this. So step 1 is to read the instructions, and you, the instructor, write this like, we're here to provide constructive professional feedback on peers, patient case study analysis. And then I have specific steps, what students are to do. So we set clear instructions there. And then step 2 for the student would be to hand in their submission. So I've already done that here. But I'm going to click add more files to show you what that looks like. We can also see that there's a deadline, March, which has passed. So I've completed it on time and it tells you that with a green check mark, completed. But I'm going to click add more files, and we can see here, you can, students can upload a PDF, PNG, MP3. They can link to a Google Doc or another URL if they want to, maybe add a recording if you're presenting something or recording a demonstration or whatnot, or you can record right here. And you as the instructor can say how many files do they upload? Does it have to be one? Can it be two? You know, you can set stipulations like that. So that's nice. And remember, I'm submitting here for my peer rather than my instructor. So this isn't where you, the instructor, would provide the grade. It's just for them to get feedback from their peer. So the next step 3, is to give feedback to my peer. So you can see this has a deadline too of June. So I have a month left and I'm on time for this. So Feedback Fruits has automatically assigned me a peer to review, which is the Teaching and Learning Center. This is just a sandbox demo course. So my peer to review is the Teaching and Learning Center. But as the instructor, you can see who everyone was assigned to review. And this can also be anonymous if you'd like. So if you want the students to not know who they're reviewing, that's an option. Just for transparency, I have it here non-anonymous. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Reviewing, and now I'm going to review the TLC's submission. So I see here initially their submission, and I can click to open. If I continue scrolling, I'm going to see a rubric that the instructor created. So I'm going to provide comments on their content, how complete, well-organized, thorough, insightful. Each of the levels of 5 points, 4, 3, 2, 1 points has some description there that the instructor has provided. I'm going to write comments on each of the criteria. So my next criteria is research and evidence, and then a third criteria of professional writing. So I can see the rubric here. I can also just click into the student's submission. So I'm going to click open so we can see this. And now we have the document and the rubric side by side. This rubric also you can reuse, like copy or duplicate it into future assignments, so you're not recreating the same rubric over and over again. So that's nice. And this having a rubric here, you know, should help to scaffold the peer review process for students who might not know what to look for. You're telling them exactly, you know, helping them, prompt them to comment on specific things in their peer's draft. And that also gives the students a clear picture of what quality looks like, which they'll apply to their own work too, right? So I'm in the TLC's submission here. So maybe I want to provide feedback to them, so I can just highlight a section and put in a comment. And then every comment that I write after I've highlighted the section that I want to comment on, I have to connect that comment to one of the rubric criteria. So again, my instructor has 3 criteria on the rubric, so I have to connect it to one of those. So hopefully this prevents a good job, great idea, nice work, some kind of vague or empty comment like that. And I'm going to comment specifically on something in the rubric. So here I say that's content. I said the patient overview includes, you know, was a thorough thing. Maybe I add another comment here. And I say, I like that you formatted it in sections, and I'm going to call that professional writing because the formatting is well structured. So I'll post that comment there for this person. And then maybe I want to write about something specific that they wrote or ask a question. So I write my question and I say, this is also comment. So I have content. I have multiple comments here about the content. I'm going to post that there. So I can go ahead and fill out the rubric here while I'm seeing the document and the rubric side by side. Or I can see all of the comments that I wrote for each of the criteria also. But I'm going to go ahead and go back to look at the rubric after, let's say I'm finished reviewing their submission, and I'm going to say, yeah, 5 points, they did a great job. I have 2 comments written on this rubric criteria of content. I'm going to say again, excellent for research and evidence, but I didn't write a comment on that. And as you see, it shows 1 required comment. So my instructor has the setting here that I'm forced to comment on each of the rubric criteria. So I can't just say 5 out of 5 points without explaining why. So I would have to write a comment here to explain that. And then my professional writing, I have 1 comment. Maybe I give them 5 out of 5 there too. So that's how it looks for the students to provide feedback for their peers. And I made the setting to require students to post 1 comment. You can require 4 comments or 5 comments if you want. So you have options there. So I'm going to go back to my peer review assignment. So I've finished providing the TLC feedback. And then I go to the next step, step 4, which is to review the feedback I received. So read received feedback. So I just gave the TLC feedback, and the TLC also gave me feedback already. So I'm going to view that. And also, this says to give feedback on feedback. This is an optional step, but this is where I would tell the TLC how valuable their feedback was to me. Was it 10 out of 10 valuable or less than that? So they have 9 comments here for me. I can click that and see them in the document. Here I can open the document, or I can see the rubric with all of the comments. This is similar to how it looked when I was reviewing theirs. So I'll just go ahead and click open the document to see the comments that they wrote to me. And similar to the one we just saw, it shows me highlights in the document, and I can click that to see the comment. They ask me a question. I can reply to that question and say, oh, thanks for noticing this mistake that I had, or something maybe. So I can reply to that. And also, as the instructor, you'll be able to see all of the comments that students provide each other. And you can also respond to comments like, ooh, maybe you were off base here, or high quality feedback, right? So you have this opportunity too. So yeah, I can go through and look at all of the things that they wrote to me and understand how I might improve this for next time. So that is their feedback on my submission. And if I scroll down to the bottom of this page is where I give feedback on feedback. So I've reviewed all the feedback that they gave me, and then I'm going to tell them how useful was it. So is their feedback actionable and constructive? Is it going to help me improve, or did it leave me feeling demotivated? So those are good things to consider. And I'm going to say, great job, TLC. I love your feedback to me. And I might write a comment here saying, thanks for the feedback. And then they'll see that. And I can say specifically what I thought was valuable, perhaps. Again, this feedback on feedback is optional, but I decided to add it just for that extra accountability. So I'm going to go back to my peer review assignment. And step 5, this is also an optional activity of reflection. So I added this in here just so we can see how that looks though. So maybe I want students to write a reflection on the peer review process, explaining what they'll revise or consider moving forward. If there's another case study analysis next month, how might they approach it differently, given the feedback that they received. And then at the bottom, we have the grading. So it's a clear list of items to complete and what they've completed so far. And you don't have to have it graded. Someone at the beginning of the session said they do peer review, but not graded. Well, this doesn't have to be graded. It could just be a tool for structural support. So that's what the feedback for this assignment looks like from the student perspective. I'm going to go back to my slides here. So now that we've seen it from the student experience, let's think about how we might structure this peer review activity. So we might want to do step 1, a calibration discussion. So this would be how to use the rubric, what each criterion means and looks like. We might need to have that discussion with students. Step 2, the students can peer review in Feedback Fruits online at their convenience, before the due date that you set. Step 3 might be a discussion and debrief. So it's helpful to give students space to, consider the peer review process and the feedback that they received, because they might not automatically know how to prioritize feedback. So without an activity like that, they may ignore useful comments or misunderstand suggestions or not know how to make the change that the comment suggests. So this could also be a place to discuss misunderstandings in the assignment and help them move forward with future assignments or revisions, and also to provide better feedback next time. And then finally, students might revise or resubmit to you, the instructor, for feedback. So this structure works well as it's encouraging reflection and collective learning. So the difference between course modalities, if you're online, asynchronous, or synchronous in person, is largely in how you calibrate and how you discuss and debrief the peer review process. So let's look at some options for that. So for your calibration discussion, before peer review, you might want to introduce students and practice using the rubric together. So for in-person or synchronous online courses, you could spend time in class applying the rubric to an anonymous sample before students peer review independently. For asynchronous online, you might record a short video walking through the rubric with an example submission or annotate a sample submission in Feedback Fruits for students to review before they start. You might also have a discussion board post with a sample submission and ask students to post comments based on the rubric criteria. So that might be your first step. And then after that, again, students would peer review and Feedback Fruits after they're familiar with the rubric. And then step 3, again, you might have that discussion debrief. We already saw the reflection activity that's built into Feedback Fruits as an optional step that you can select to help students plan for revision. And I'll share a couple more activities that you might do to help students to think critically about the peer review process. So another discuss or debrief activity that you might do after students peer review is whiteboard trends. And this has the purpose to surface shared challenges or recurring themes from the peer review experience. So students don't often realize that everyone struggles with the same things, or this can help to create a shared reference point for revision and to help you guide instruction to identify gaps to address an instruction. And so you can ask students to share what they noticed in giving or receiving feedback. And as you do this, record the themes. So in person, this looks like just a traditional whiteboard activity where you're writing themes as students share. For synchronous online, you can do the same thing using a Zoom whiteboard. And I know in our next session in this seminar series on May 20th, Erin will show you how to use Zoom whiteboards, so you can come back for that. And then finally, in an asynchronous online course, you might post a poll or a survey in your Canvas course where students can see the results that others have posted, or you might create a Google Doc or a discussion board where students can add their responses and see others as they come in, which gives that same sense of collective experience without the real-time interaction. And another discussion or debrief activity that you might do after peer review would be feedback analysis. So this focuses on the feedback itself to help students develop their understanding of what makes feedback actually useful. So you could pull a few, of course, anonymous examples of feedback from the peer review and ask students to discuss them together, like what makes this feedback actionable? Why might this suggestion have been made, or how would you respond to it? They don't have to respond to 100% of the feedback that they get. And that's part of peer review, is understanding, analyzing and understanding what to act on. So the goal here is to build students' ability to give and receive constructive feedback, because those skills may need to be explicitly taught. And this activity can also connect to the Feedback Fruits activity when you ask them to rate each other. This helps them to articulate why it was quality or not, rather than just clicking a number. So in person or synchronous online courses, this could be a real-time discussion. For asynchronous online, you might share example feedback in a Canvas discussion board prompt and ask students to reply. And then after this type of debrief, students are in a much better position to go back and revise their work thoughtfully and to provide quality feedback in the future. So that's our peer review process. After revising, students would submit to you, the instructor, for feedback. There's certainly other structures, but this one works pretty well for all modalities. So that's our peer review process. We saw at the beginning of the session today some challenges with peer review. So I hope you see how Feedback Fruits provided some solutions to those, that it gives you the opportunity to clearly align a submission with a rubric and criteria that can guide students in their feedback. It also allows peers to rate each other's feedback and allows you to set requirements for providing comments to each other. And it lists step by step what students are to complete and organizes the logistics quite smoothly for us. All right, so after learning all of that today, some of that may have been new for you. What ideas are you taking away from this session, or what are ways that you're already using Feedback Fruits, if you are, for peer review? Does anyone have a response to this? Feel free to type in the chat or come up mute.
I can speak to what we're doing in our anatomy course.
Yeah, please.
So before we were using Qualtrics for peer reviews, and it took me forever to provide the feedback in like copy and paste over to Canvas. And so a friend of mine actually mentioned this. And so we started using this, I think 2 years ago now. But we just use it for after the units team-based learning sessions. They are supposed to reflect on how their group participated. I have it as set as anonymous. I mean, they know who's in their group. There's only 4 to 5 of them. So it is anonymous to an extent. But a couple of things that I wrote down that you talked about that I haven't explored, calibrating the students and actually taking them through how it should work, I think could potentially be helpful. But then sometimes when the students grade lower, they don't always put in why they're grading lower. So your forced comments for like the lesser scores, like if it's not your 5 out of 5, I think could also be very helpful. So there are definitely some things that I'm going to go back and look at how we currently have it set up versus some of the things you shared.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing your perspective. Have you got any student feedback on using it?
There's been some like at first there were some like glitches, like things didn't work how I thought they were supposed to because I couldn't see from a student perspective. When you go to student view, I couldn't fill it out like
Good
a
point.
student. So that was very difficult to know that it was working how I wanted it to for them. So there were some glitches on the front end, but when I've asked the students to double check before they like leave for the day to fill it out, they're like, nope, this looks right. This looks easy. The people I'm supposed to be providing feedback to, it's there. And it usually doesn't take them that long because again, I have a rubric in there and they're not having to go back and like read through anything. It's just based on their experience with their group.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that too. That's a good note. It doesn't work for student view, which is why I added myself as a student, a different account as a student, so I could see it from the student perspective. But you have seen the demo from the student perspective, so now setting it up from the instructor is your next step. And someone asked in the chat, is this tool readily available in each Canvas course, or does it require additional request steps? It is available for you. If you go into your course settings, navigation, and you see a list of tools, you can enable those. Reach out to us if you have any questions with that. Does anyone else, actually for the sake of time, I might go on to the next slide, but if you want to type in the chat, feel free. I'm always happy to know how people are using these tools too, and this type of learning activity. So definitely let us know if you would like to. But there are some resources here. So Erin's going to post these in the chat. The first link that she posted is to watch the video tutorial of how to create feedback fruits activities in Canvas. So this does go through the actual step-by-step of creating the assignment in Canvas. And then their help center has a lot of different resources. Sorry, that would be helpful. And then, of course, TLC, we're here as a resource too. So reach out to us via email or consultation to learn more, to talk more about this in particular. And I'll go ahead and open it to Q&A. I think I probably missed a couple of things in the chat, but does anyone have any questions specifically about peer review or feedback fruits that we can answer now? Okay, I see one comment from Kelsey in the chat that feedback fruits has saved us instructors so much time. And I do want to say that it should save time in that students' submissions hopefully are higher quality after getting feedback from each other and applying a rubric to a submission then transfers over to their own. So yeah, it should save you grading time, hopefully. Someone else says, the students are already apprehensive about the fact that they have to complete a recorded video presentation. So I'm concerned to add an additional different or new tool. Yeah, good point. Any guidance on how to navigate that? I think if we sell the value or see the value in it, and share that with students, make it worth their while. Again, doing it once in a semester or once in a course might not be worth that for them to learn a new tool. But if it really is getting to your learning outcomes, helping you achieve those, hopefully that sells students on it. Feel free to reach out for more. We're at the top of the session now, so I'm going to go ahead and share with you before we drop here our next session. So thank you for joining today. I'll stay on for a couple minutes to answer other questions. Our next session, Tech-Savvy Approaches to Case Studies, is on May 20th. So I hope that you join us for that. And the recording from today's session will be available soon on YouTube on the TLC Learning channel. And you can already find the recording of our first session in this series, Reading Assignments Don't Have to Be Retro, there on YouTube. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of your participation here today. And again, we'll hang out if there's any more questions.